Next, Senator Hassan.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Secretary Kennedy, thank you for being here. I'd like to start by talking about the current measles outbreak, which I know is a concern for all of us here today. 2 children in Texas have tragically died from measles this year, the first children to die from measles in our country in more than 20 years. Measles is almost completely preventable with the measles vaccine. As you know, it's critical that families hear directly and clearly from healthcare leaders about how they can best protect their children. So, Mr. Secretary, I'd like to give you an opportunity to say clearly here today to any parents who are watching that the best way to protect their children from measles is to vaccinate them.
Yeah, I've said that the best way to stop the spread of measles is through vaccination. But I would say this. We have handled this measles outbreak. We get a measles outbreak every year. We've handled this measles outbreak better than any other nation.
What I was interested in, you can say, what I asked you to do was to say straight to the camera, as you did on social media, that it is your position that the best way for parents to prevent their kids from getting measles is to vaccinate them. And that is your statement today.
I said that too.
Right? All right. Well, that is great. Thank you. Now, you lead the nation's health department, so let me ask you a couple of questions. Do you think HHS should employ anyone who has endangered the health of children?
Hello, viewers. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I just watched that 10th Senate hearing clip with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Senator Maggie Hassan, you know, the one where they go at it over this guy named David Geier and the whole vaccine safety debate. And folks, let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack here, and frankly, a lot that the mainstream media won't tell you. Now, before we dive in, let me be clear. I'm all for protecting our kids. That means making sure they're safe from disease, but also safe from dangerous experiments and government cover-ups. So when I see this kind of hearing, I'm listening very carefully, especially when it comes to vaccines, autism, and what's going on behind the scenes at HHS. First off, you have Senator Hassan pressing Kennedy on measles, reminding us that 2 kids died recently in Texas from measles, which is tragic. And yeah, measles can be prevented with vaccines, no question about it. Even Kennedy says vaccination helps stop the spread. So far, so good. But here's where things get complicated. Hassan accuses Kennedy of hiring this guy David Geier, who apparently has a shady past. Practicing medicine without a license, giving hormone blockers to autistic kids as young as 8. Now that's not just concerning. That's downright dangerous if true. Kennedy, on the other hand, flat out denies that Geier was hired by HHS to run autism research. He calls those claims defamatory and says the Maryland Medical Board's findings against Geier were overturned in court. There's even talk about a $5 million defamation award. So who's telling the truth here? Here's what I think, patriots. This is classic government bureaucratic smoke and mirrors. The truth always seems to get buried somewhere in these complicated legal fights. And who pays the price? Our kids, our families, and the American people who deserve honest answers.
No.
You hired David Geier to lead autism research at HHS. An individual who fraudulently posed as a doctor and gave dangerous medications and medical tests to children with autism. According to the state of Maryland's investigation, David Geier, who has no medical license or training, gave hormone blocker injections to children with autism who were as young as 8 years old, which the Maryland Board of Medicine said poses a substantial risk of harm. Secretary Kennedy, yes or no, will you fire David Geier?
First of all, what you're saying is not true. And we did not hire David Geier to manage autism research at HHS.
So what is his job? What is his job then?
You just said some very defamatory things about a person who, by the way.
So let me just be clear for the record.
Those charges, Senator, I am going to correct the record on this.
Let me tell you what the record says, and then I will hear from you. Last week, when Mr. O'Neill was here in his confirmation hearing, I submitted for the record the charge that the state of Maryland laid out. Now, if you'd like also for me to submit to the record with unanimous consent today the findings of the state of Maryland, which fined him $10,000 for practicing medicine without a license. He does not have a medical license, and for providing and instructing and giving children hormone blockers. That is what the finding of the Maryland department, the state of Maryland, its medical licensing board was. And I'll submit that for the record, I hope with unanimous consent.
I'm assuming that you don't know what I'm about to tell you, or you wouldn't say something that was so dishonest. You may or may not know that David Geier sued the American.
Oh, I do know that. I do know that. That doesn't change the findings, nor does it change the experience of the parents who testified.
That finding was reversed by court, and he was awarded $5 million.
That is not true. Now, let me ask. So I just want confirmation. David Geier is still at HHS. I wrote you a letter about this a month ago, and you have not responded.
Well, I apologize for that. That's our bad, and I will respond. But David Geier is not managing autism research.
So what is his job? What is his job at HHS? This is somebody who gave parents the impression that he was a doctor and gave hormone blockers to children as young as 8, telling them that hormone blockers would somehow magically help their kids with autism.
His father
His father is a doctor, but he is not. And his father was not in the room and did not, and he faked his father's signature according to the State Board of Medicine.
And that ruling was overturned by a court. So what you're saying is just wrong. It's just a lie. And they were actually, the court said that the Maryland Board of Physicians was guilty of actual malice in fabricating those charges against David Geier.
Well, we will pursue this. And I will submit for the record.
So do you want to know why we brought David Geier in?
Sure.
Because it wasn't to run autism research. In 2002, the CDC runs a vaccine safety data link, which is supposed to be the vaccine information for the biggest HMOs that are supposed to allow CDC to have a surveillance system for vaccine injury. It's a backstop system. The CDC will not let any physicians in there to look at it or any scientists, independent scientists.
He's neither a scientist nor a physician.
Right. Congress ordered CDC to open it to the Geiers. So they are the only scientists who have ever been in there.
But again, Mr. Geier is not a scientist. Thank you.
Independent scientists.
Okay, Senator Hassan's time's expired, but before we move on, did you have a unanimous consent request that I heard in there, Senator?
You, Senator Hawley, I did. A unanimous consent request for the printout of the website that shows Dr. Geier is not Dr. Geier, that's his father, Mr. Geier, is employed, and also a unanimous consent request for the finding from the Board of Licensing in Maryland.
Without objection to both of those. And now, Mr. Kennedy, before we get to my time, do you want, if you'd like to finish your response, go ahead, and then I'll recognize myself.
David Geier is the only living independent scientist who's seen the VSD inside. There's been a lot of monkey business with the VSD, including allegations of fraud. And he was hired by an independent contractor not as an HHS employee, but by an independent contractor to look at the documents that we were getting to the VSD to see if they conformed with what he saw between 2002 and 2016. And that's the only reason that he was brought in, to see if there was, there's so much information that has disappeared from that database. The only way we could find out what information disappeared was because he was the one guy who saw it.
And just let the record show he's not a scientist. Thank you very much.
All right.
If this guy Geier was involved in hormone blockers for autistic children, which sounds unbelievable to most of us, we deserve to know what exactly happened, who knew what, and why he's still connected to the Department of Health in any capacity. And then Kennedy drops a bombshell, saying Geier is the only living independent person who's seen inside the CDC's vaccine safety data link. That's the database supposed to track vaccine injuries and adverse reactions. But here's the kicker. Kennedy says the CDC won't let doctors or independent scientists look at it. They only let Geier in. And even Kennedy admits Geier is not a licensed scientist or doctor. That should scare the hell out of every American who cares about transparency and truth. Why is the CDC hiding data? Why are independent scientists shut out? Why is someone unlicensed allowed to peek behind the curtain? These are serious questions that need serious answers, not the usual bureaucratic brush-offs. And here's the bigger picture. This isn't just about one guy or one vaccine. It's about a system that seems more interested in protecting its own narrative and power than protecting our kids' health or respecting parents' rights. Kennedy's tough stance in that hearing shows he's not afraid to challenge the deep state and expose the monkey business happening behind the scenes. And Senator Hassan's grilling, while understandable from a public health perspective, comes off a little too ready to throw out accusations without full transparency. Folks, as patriots, we must demand accountability from our government. We need independent investigations. We need full transparency about vaccine safety and who's involved in making those decisions. And above all, we need to protect our children from harm, not just from disease, but from potential abuse or reckless experimentation. So here's my takeaway. I support vaccines as a tool to protect public health, but I'm also deeply concerned about the corruption and secrecy surrounding vaccine research and safety data. People like David Geier, whoever he really is, represent the kind of unchecked power that threatens our freedom and the well-being of our families. If the CDC and HHS want our trust, they need to open the doors wide open. No more hiding behind national security or privacy. We deserve the truth, full stop. If you're tired of being kept in the dark and want real answers, hit that like button, share this video, and let's keep this conversation going. Because patriots don't stay silent when our children's futures are at stake.
Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. Every view means a lot. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, drop a comment to let me know your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Your support keeps this channel going. Thank you, and bye for now.